Welcome, everybody, to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by RunItOnce.com. I'm your host, A. Schwartz, not alongside Roscoe P. Coltrane. He is in Costa Rica.
Nice to
Roscoe?
be on your show again.
Hola. Nice to be on your show again.
And Terrence Chan in Thailand.
Spanish. You have to. All drops today must be in Costa Rican Spanish, and anything that comes out of your mouth in general. That's the way it works.
I've only got hola, gracias, and bien. Those are my 3 words.
You've been in Costa Rica a few days now. Give us a quick trip report.
It's been about a week. Yeah, it's been amazing. Like I didn't know that my uncle was so set up over here. We've been over. So first off, we went down to the Panama border, essentially, to a place called Punta Banco, coincidentally, and we saw a bunch of wildlife. We were staying at this like jungle lodge, and it was like an open air. It had an open air kitchen, and we would leave food out, and monkeys would come into the kitchen and eat the food. And there was iguanas.
Oh, yeah. The monkey food theft is like the best thing about Costa Rica. Like, if you look around on like YouTube, the half of the YouTube searches are just like, oh, like monkeys are literally like stealing bananas out of people's backpacks and stuff like that. They're really fucking smart too, and like the ones that have been learned to be around tourists, like they will do crazy shit. But did you know? A fun fact about monkeys. I think it's monkeys. Maybe it's chimps. Have you guys ever heard that? If you start introducing currency into like primate society, prostitution quickly develops.
No way. Are you serious?
I feel like I've heard that before.
Like some experimenters did something where it's like, oh, if you do like X task, we'll give you a banana, and if you like do like Y task, we'll give you 2 bananas. And so they started like creating an economy for monkeys or chimpanzees or whatever like that. And one of the things that happened was that the females started prostituting themselves for whatever currency became available.
Oh, unreal. So now we've driven up, now we're close to the Nicaragua border, and we're up at Arenal Volcano, where we're at the Arenal Observatory Lodge, it's pretty sweet, and I'm currently in like a jungle villa. We're pretty far out here. It's not really a house. I mean, it's not like a villa. It's a pretty big house. And already this afternoon I've been horseback riding, and we went on a crazy zip line. So we're staying busy, but it's pouring rain.
Good time. Thailand. Give us the rundown. You got a fight coming up? You training? What's going on?
No, I don't have a fight coming up, but I would love to have one. So I mean, if one pops up, I'll be ready. I'm in really good shape. I've acclimatized to like the heat and the training and stuff like that. So over the last 2 weeks, I've been training pretty hard. You know, this is like the only place in the world where I can train 3-4 hours a day and not feel like I'm been beaten over the head by a stick over and over. Like I just did like an hour of Thai clinching with my Thai trainer. You know, this is one of those dudes who has like 300 fights and was fighting since he was like 6 years old. And, he threw me around the ring and kneed me in the guts 8 million times. But he does it in a very like playful, gentle sort of way. And so I'm learning lots over here. So yeah, everything's good. But with Ross in Costa Rica, like me in Thailand, it's not exactly feeling a lot like Christmas, I'm guessing, for us, because we just don't have, like, I mean, there's a place I could get an ice bath, and that would probably get me in the ballpark of what what Canada is feeling like. Like, wasn't like Winnipeg like minus 59 or something like that the other day? And like
it was pretty crazy. It's been cold up here. We're just warming up now, and white Christmas, hopefully, for a change. So lots of snow on the ground, but it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas. Merry Christmas to everybody out there, and I hope you guys all have a great holiday season. But we should move on. Today we're going to continue with the Degen Stories angle. I think that was well received last week with Barry Greenstein coming on to talk about some of the different Johnny World stories and Phil Ivey stories. Today we're going to be joined by Michael Gratz, who is a World Poker Tour champion. I think he won the biggest limit hold'em tournament in history. I think it was the Party Poker.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that
it was
might be
crazy.
right. It's certainly one of the biggest ever. On the boat, on the party poker.
On the boat, yeah.
Remember
He
when
won
that was a thing?
5 million, right?
I wish that was still a thing. Poker tournaments that take place on boats. They're like logistically a massive pain in the ass for anybody who would want to run one. But that was fun. Like the PCA and the party poker boats were super fun.
They were fun. I was on the very first one. When Kath Liebert won the Party Poker Million one, I guess it was, because they had a multitude of ways to win your way into that tournament on Party, and it was really that was the heyday of online poker. So those satellites were incredibly soft. And then it was a heck of a tournament. I think I ended up in like 30th or 32nd or something, but a great time.
Yeah, just checking. Mike Gratz won 1.5 million for the fourth Party Poker Million. I can't imagine, like, to people who have just taken up poker in the last 5 years, like, they would be epically shocked that there was ever a poker tournament, a limit hold'em poker.
A limit hold'em tournament.
1.5 million. Like, you could like run like a limit hold'em one drop, and it might not get 1.5 million for first because like there would only be 5.
Right. No, for sure. So he's going to come on and join us. He's got some golf stories, I think. I played golf with him in the Savage Invitational at Pebble Beach one year and had a lot of fun, and he loves to gamble it up. He said he does have some good stories, and he's a great storyteller. So I'm looking for. He's also a World Series of Poker champion. He won his bracelet, I believe, in 05 or maybe 06, many years ago. He's in the daily fantasy sports business now, but he's going to join us. Zachary Freeman, who you mentioned, Roscoe, last week, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
I went after him, a Run at Once coach, PLO guy. He's a live casino grinder in LA. Hopefully he's got some info for us down there, and we'll ask him some questions, get some PLO knowledge out of him a little later. So that should be good. But I thought we'd start it off this week with some in the comments and questions thread from the 2+2 forum, the Pokercast forum over there. There's got some stuff, a backlog of a couple weeks we haven't got to it. So why don't we clean some of those up? You good to go?
Absolutely, yeah. I hate neglecting that thread because I started that thread and I stickied that thread, and every week we get so much mailbag, but we forget there's interaction on the forums out there. So
let's get to
big fail on our part. Slap us on the wrist. Let's get into this thread.
It's going to be a heavy user show today. We got a bunch, in case you missed it, to get to as well. But we got tons of emails, and we want to get these out of the way so we can move on for a show next week. Degen NTJ writes, "Hey guys, love the show. Been listening every week for a year now. I was at a pretty crazy home game last night, and after a few adult beverages, ran into an interesting prop and have no idea who was on the right side. One side gets ace, king, queen, jack of random suits, so there may or not be suited cards. After that, the other side gets 6 random cards, and then we run out a hold'em board, and each side can use up to 2 cards to make their best hand. So not specifically 2, up to 2. I took ace, king, queen, jack, and won once and lost once. Who do you think had the best side of this bet, and how much of an edge is there?" T?
I've gone back and forth on this one a couple times, and the first time I thought that taking the ace, king, queen, jack was probably right, but the caveat that you just mentioned, the up to 2 cards, I think that maybe swings it to the 6 card because actually maybe not. Maybe it still doesn't, because I was thinking that there's some weird sort of situations where there's pairs on board and you just want to have an extra 6 card, but that still gives a big advantage to the 6 card hand. So, man, that's a really fun prop bet. I don't know the answer to that. So
it's interesting that you came to that conclusion. I actually came to the conclusion, I thought it was pretty easily, that the 6 random cards is the favorite. Yeah. Considering you can still get, ace, king, queens, and jacks, or ace, king, queen, jacks, because of course it's 6 any random cards. There's still, 3 aces, 3 kings, 3 queens, 3 jacks. And the fact that you can use 1 card, you can make a lot of 1-card straights kind of thing. I'm
willing to. Okay, so I think I'm getting it in bad because I think you're right, but I'm willing to make a $20 side on you if we just run like 10 boards or something like that. We'll have to do it virtually or something like that.
Or maybe somebody can put it into a calculator out there for us.
Well, but I mean, you'd have to write the software because there's no simulator out there that's going to be like 4 cards against 6 cards.
Yeah.
Like that, I don't think anybody's going to go to the effort of actually writing the simulation to do this. But you could actually just deal 10 boards or something like that. Like remove the ace, king, queen, jack, and then like remove 6 cards and run the boards. It's probably fast.
We'll do that.
Unless you're a really whiz-kid programmer, which there are a bunch out there.
For sure. All right. Do you want to do the next one?
Sure. Who's next? Longtime contributor to the forum. Always appreciate his stuff. He writes, you guys probably know the Borgata Ivey edge sorting judge this week ordered Ivey to repay the Borgata $10.1 million. So in case you missed it, yes, the judge ordered Ivey to repay the $10 million. This is the $9.6 million Ivey won at Punto Banco, LOL, by the way, Ross, via edge sorting, and the $500,000 that Ivey won at the Borgata at craps using the edge sorting ill-gotten gains, which is, by the way, like of all the atrociousness and god-awful decision-making that's occurred in the trial, like taking away the $500,000 that he won at craps when he had a negative expectation, that's just like the fucking cherry on top of the bad metaphor that I'm using.
Okay, this is a story we've gotten in case you missed it, and I've got a point about that we can talk about, but we'll do that later.
Anyway, okay, so he continues, or maybe she continues, I don't know who's next is. In case you or your listeners may be interested, some nut, aka me, showed that the edge that Ivey achieved via edge sorting gave him a 99+% chance of winning the $10 million. Some people argued that Ivey's edge was not significant and that he could do just as well as losing millions. A version of the argument that the casino had a free roll. Straightforward analysis demonstrates that Ivey's edge was around 5 to 7% per deal, and with that edge, Ivey was basically printing money. That's really interesting because it basically showed that he was actually free rolling the house.
Right.
Assuming
he does, assuming he approaches it properly with bankroll and that kind of thing.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but, like, even still, like, 99, 98%, 95% or whatever, like, it's still really close. Whatever. Like, if you show up to a casino and play Big Wheel, you are also 99% to lose, like, if you play enough. So, but that doesn't mean that you can show up, play Big Wheel all day long, lose all of your money in your house, and say, like, oh, I got screwed or I got ripped off. Like, that's not the way that gambling works. So, you know what? Like, we've all said many times before that the casinos are willing to take it, but not, give it but not take it, or the reverse or whatever. Sigh.
Have you played the Big Wheel? I have played the Big Wheel in my gambling career.
I don't think I have.
Me and Bunner played it in Macau.
You were playing it during, like, Casino Olympics or something, though.
Casino Olympics. I've also played it at the BC Lottery, or the casinos they set up at the PNE, the exhibition here every year, because I've had 17 beers.
So you played the Big Wheel there. I don't know if that counts for anything. I've also gambled on, like, at the fair, like, when you shoot the water gun and it moves, like, your little, like, icon horse, towards the end.
Oh, but you can't win. You can't win any money at that. You can win money at the Big Wheel at the casino at the fair. So
you can win money if you're side betting big enough.
That's true. That's true. All right. The Glass writes, hello, first-time poster. Been listening a while. I'm wondering if Terrence has any stories from his days in Costa Rica working for PokerStars. I'd be very interested in hearing some of these.
Yeah, none that are going to be consumed for public consumption, but no.
Yeah.
I have stories, but, unfortunately.
Can we tell the story without names about the stag party?
Ugh. And we could. I mean,
can you tell that story without names?
It would be a fairly terrible story because we'll just say, like, person A told us to go to this strip club, and person B.
No. The one where very high-profile poker players.
I'll let you attempt to tell the story in an anonymous fashion.
Okay, in an anonymous fashion. Here's the story as I remember it. T, correct me if I'm wrong. One of a person that we're somewhat friendly with was getting married, and he lived in Costa Rica at the time. And his bachelor party was going to be in San Jose. So a bunch of high-profile poker players who were also friends with this person decided to throw him a bachelor party in Costa Rica. Now, the San Jose is sort of a good place to have a stag party because there's not a lot of rules in places as far as drinking and everything. So a strip club was rented out. I believe the entire strip club was rented out for the party. Everybody, what's that? Oh, so okay, one of the floors. Everybody arrives, and it turns out that the bride of said acquaintance of everybody's decided that even though everybody was coming in from all over the world for this thing, that this wasn't going to happen, or the groom wasn't going to attend this bachelor party.
Let's say the bride was had enough familiarity with the country and what sometimes may happen in Costa Rican, businesses.
She'd heard stories.
She'd heard stories and she'd heard fairy tales. So yeah, it ended up. Basically the stag party ends up going on without the guest of honor.
Right.
Which is a bit of a sad thing, which is hilarious. But still, as I recall, by like 3 a.m., people were still glad they came, I think.
Oh, good. But yeah, I'm sure there's lots of PokerStars related stories. Maybe in a future show you can drop one on us.
I will brainstorm this topic. I feel like I'm not. My immediate recall is not giving this the benefit that it deserves. Oh, hey, the Winston.
That's my dog.
And that's your dog, Winston. He's occasional guest of the show. But I'll do my best to see what I can come up with. And the last one comes from Habermau 5.
Habermouse?
In the 140 or less drop. Habermouse? In the 140 or less drop, where does the really short clip of Adam saying Terrence Chan come from, and why is it there? Is this an in-joke that I missed? Ross, do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, I just wanted to put your name in there since it would sound even weirder if it was just Tracy Jordan saying his own name. I tried to personalize it to the show.
I like it. Yeah. Good. All right, let's hop into In Case You Missed It.
How did he miss the open goal? 6x4, and he comes up 0. Oh, no!
Oh, yes! He missed it!
He's missed it! How on earth did he miss that?
I know you guys have been saying the last couple of weeks, guys, we haven't heard enough about William Kassouf. Why aren't you talking about him every week? Get on it. We need to hear the latest in William Kassouf updates. We've got one for you. He went to the final EPT stop in Prague that just concluded and played the high roller, the 10K high roller, I believe, and ended up getting down heads up, and he ends up making a deal as a heads up dog. He's a 4-1 chip dog when they get heads up. And he decides to make a deal with the other guy. Fair enough, they make a deal. But in the deal, Kassouf wins the title and the trophy. And he's called the winner, which is kind of strange. Like, I understand that Phil Hellmuth or, Daniel Negreanu, somewhere where wins is worth some, nebulous amount of money to be, the ambassadors of poker that they are. Every time they win, they get more credibility, etc. I'm not sure that the William Kassouf falls into the group of people.
To my knowledge, Hellmuth has never actually made a deal that he was like guaranteed to. I mean,
sure, no, I'm not. I didn't mean to suggest.
The only thing I can think of is that is like Max and Maria Stern thing,
right?
Like that's the only sort of time that I can think of that I can remember that somebody sort of threw away first place or whatever, or however you want to say it, to make a deal. So this one is this one's definitely interesting.
So I'm going to read from the Card Player article here. It said, Kassouf struck a deal heads up to take down the final 10K high roller in European Poker Tour history. In order to secure that honor, Kassouf, who was a 4-1 chip disadvantage to Canada's Patrick Serta, offered a deal that saw Serta take home €719,000, while Kassouf would earn the title, the trophy, and the winner's photo, along with €532,000. The payouts would originally have been $485 to the runner-up and $765 to the champion, had no deal been struck. So Kassouf basically got 47,000 more than he would have if he would have lost. So it seems like he gave up some sort of equity to be called the winner. And it just struck me as weird. I mean, is this something that tournament directors should be allowing? Like, you know, if you play tournaments online and you make a deal, is it like 10% of the prize pool needs to be left on the table to play out to have a winner? But to just abandon the tournament after Kassouf gets heads up and he's a 4-1 dog, and then, hey, take a picture with the trophy and the 2 card, like pick random 2 cards because you didn't win the tournament, but here, pick 2 and hold them up and you're the winner. It's just so weird.
It is weird. On the other hand, I think you and I have talked on the show, and we agree that generally that deals are a good thing.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
That you know, in the grand scheme of things, the players are playing with their own money. You know, you can talk, you know, obviously in like the GPL or something like that, where 100% or most of the money is added, where, you know, that's a different story. But in any tournament where all the players are putting up their own money, I think it's fair for them to do absolutely whatever they want. Now, Will Kassouf is, you know, kind of a jackass, but, you know, and this is like the latest iteration of you know, him being far more interested in his self-promotion and his brand than actually, like, getting really good at poker and doing these things. Like, the guy is just, you know, clearly just wants to be famous, and
like
that's fine. I mean, people play poker for different reasons, and that's totally fine. I just ran the numbers on it real quick. I should say real quick because I don't know that I've done it right, but if he had a 4-1 chip disadvantage, his equity in the tournament should have been at that stage 541,000. So it looks like he paid about, if I'm doing this right, $9,100 to get a trophy and pick
9,100 euros. Yeah.
Oh, 9,100 euros. Excuse me. So yeah, more. So yeah, I mean, I don't have an ethical problem with it. I know that this was like a heavily discussed matter in the forums, like, oh, should this actually be allowed, and you know, does it cheapen the game? And she says, no, we're still talking about poker here, guys. Like, we're still talking about a game where people are fundamentally gambling. They're gambling with their own money. They're showing up, and until we get to a point where there's so much sponsorship money that, you know, we don't have to actually pay our own buy-ins, I'm totally fine with this.
Yeah, I guess I've come around. I think I feel like you should play a tournament out if you're going to have winning photos and you're going to have points for players of the year and all this kind of stuff. I feel like you should play it out to a winner. Just abandoning the tournament at this point seems strange to me. What percentage?
What is a photo? I mean, this is all like so much of poker. Like, so much of poker in 2016 like revolves around ego gratification, right? Like, this is why the World Series does better than every other tournament in the world, despite the fact that the World Series of Poker is objectively not run as well as like the EPT events, or you know, like it's not as pleasant an experience. Like, people talk about like, oh, I hate Vegas in the summer and blah blah blah, but because the World Series of Poker is still the brand, and because it still carries the most cachet and the most prestige, and people still like to go home and talk about how they played at the World Series of Poker and they're a 13-time WSOP casher or whatever. Like poker's still very much like an image-based game and like developing some resume. So I mean, as long as that's the case, like, you know, let people make shitty deals for the gratification of their egos.
Fair enough. All right, let's move on. In case you missed it, Matt Savage posted a situation, as he often does, on his Facebook page of an interesting spot that I thought we could talk about. This is him talking. A situation that apparently may or not have happened at the Bellagio WPT, but it was explained to me this way by player in the hand. Blinds are 800, 1600 with a 200 ante. Player A says 43,000 on the river and proceeds to put out a single 5K chip in the pot. Player B on the other end of the table says call and puts out a 5K chip and turns over hand. Player A wins the pot, and then B is shocked to hear that player A is demanding 38,000 more. Some players heard 43,000, and some said they didn't hear it. The dealer heard but didn't repeat. 1, what is your ruling? 2, what if B was wearing headphones and couldn't hear? Does it matter? T, do you want to take a run at it?
Yeah, I actually responded to this. I do think it's a really interesting question in a lot of ways. But okay, so first of all, let's just get this out of the way. Like, player A is kind of a douche.
Yes.
You should not bet 43,000 by throwing a single 5K chip in the pot. A second thing that I think is maybe slightly relevant is how quickly this all happened, right? So, like, if he says 43,000, toss 5K chip in the pot, like, B just snap calls, it's very much his fault. I think that the bet should stand. I think that the bet should be 43,000, and that B should be forced to call 43,000. He did verbally declare it. We've got the dealer hearing it, so clearly he definitely said it. But there's clearly a bunch of mistakes have been made. So number one, the dealer not repeating the bet is a very big mistake, and that dealer needs to be reprimanded and reminded that when there's a bet size that's different than the actual number of chips in the pot, you absolutely always have to repeat that bet. So if somebody bets 500 on the river and they toss in a 500 chip, that's fine if the dealer doesn't say anything. Nice of them. But you always have to repeat a bet that's different from what it actually appears to be. And then I think A should be gently reminded / reprimanded, for me to say, that he should not, make bets of this nature, because it could be an angle. And in fact, if this player were involved in a future sort of thing later in this tournament or developed a reputation for doing things like that, then I would start to be really inclined, if I were the TD, to start penalizing that person. Question 2, what if the B was wearing headphones and couldn't hear? Does it matter? Nope, absolutely not. If you wear headphones, that is sort of your own disadvantage. That's like saying, I'm wearing sunglasses and I thought that the heart was a diamond, and so I made a bad call. Can I have my money back, please? So no, that's silly. It does matter, I think. Again, like, there's a few details that are missing, right? Like, does player A does he happen to be in the one seat right next to the dealer, and he can barely, he barely says it out loud, like 43, he's 43,000. Or did he vocalize it? I mean, there's some players. It sounds like there's some players who said they didn't hear it, and some players who did. So that to me indicates that it was in a reasonable tone of voice. But this is a big dealer error. This is a big player B error. But yeah, he should be forced to pay 43,000.
So I feel like this is going to be this. You could drive a truck through this hole if anglers could just take advantage of this so easily. And I would almost venture to say that it's likely it was an angle that he did this. And I would be afraid of letting this stand without some sort of penalty to A, because it can just open the doors wide open for angling in this spot and doing this. So I think my ruling is the guy, first of all, verbal is binding. So he said it, people heard it, the dealer heard it, so that's clear enough for me. The bet is what it was, 38,000. So the player B has to pay the 38,000. Player B also could say how much was the bet. I understand it slows the game down, but if you're player B in this spot, you need to verify exactly how much this bet is before you pay it. So what my ruling would be, I think, is the $38,000 bet or 38,000 chip bet would stand. Player B would have to make up the remaining 33,000. But player A would get at least a 1-round penalty from me for doing this. And if the guy wasn't angling, he's never ever gonna do this again, which is what I want. I don't ever want to see people throwing in single chips and being douchey like that. So if he was angling, he deserves it. If he wasn't, then he's never going to do it again. So I feel like a 1-round penalty is, and then escalating if he continues to do it. B.
Right. I don't hate your ruling. I mean, I don't think that A can be penalized unless you have a significant amount of, like, a lot of confidence. I mean, you said you're pretty sure he's angling. I think there's a pretty good chance, but it's sort of like, the whole beyond a reasonable doubt idea. Like, unless I really, really think that he shot an angle, if I'm coming over at the table and this is a person with a history and this and that, I don't think I'm gonna punish. But I also don't hate your ruling, because he's getting an extra 38,000 here. The 1 round, he's not, here's another kind of point to that argument, is that if the penalty becomes 1 round, clearly 38,000 at this stage of the tournament is worth a lot more than a one-round penalty is. So are you sort of almost saying like, let's calculate the risk and reward for, I get a penalty, but I also get 43K from this guy. That's a good bet. So, I should do this more often. I don't know. Giving somebody a penalty doesn't really disincentivize that unless like, what is it then? Like the next time you would actually have to say like the guy's getting free rolled and he's only going to be able to collect 5K, but if the other guy's a better hand, then it's 43K. And that's a really awkward ruling to make, which is,
no,
which could have happened.
I think what I do is escalating penalty. So, if you want to calculate that you can do it once a tournament on me, or if I see you again, maybe I won't penalize you. If I know you're continuing to angle kind of thing. If he does it again, we're going to get pretty deep into penalties because
he's... And that'll happen again if this guy plays like a WPT, but there's no sort of organized body of tournament penalties, right? Like the WCPT does it, so they track penalties and stuff like that. But like, if this is this guy's first offense in WPT, then he can go over to the EPT and do it, and he can go over to WSOP. And people do that. We hear stories of people angle shooting in different poker tours all the time, and it's not for a while until they get a reputation. But I do worry sort of that this sort of they start thinking like, oh well, I can get away from this and it's worth it. But I'm looking at sort of the responses, and there are a lot of people that agree with you, and there are a lot of people that agree with me. I think but it is another thing to keep into consideration that if it was an angle, it's not an angle that's completely without risk, right? Because the dealer heard 43,000. So if the guy throws out 5K and the other guy snap calls and he's like, I got quads, then he's going to owe 43,000 as well, right? Like it's not like one of those angles where you could pretend like you were only betting 5K. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think if you're going to angle, you're obviously going to do it with the nuts or super strong hand in that spot, but. As far as the headphones, that doesn't matter at all. I don't know why Matt asked that. Matt made a comment in the thread, and I thought this was interesting too. He said maybe you should be able to lose what you stated, but win what you put in the pot, unless you're all in. That should clear things up and stop anyone from thinking of putting less chips in than they stated into the pot.
I hate that. I really do. I mean, unless you have to be at this point like 1,000% sure that this guy was angling if you're going to make that ruling. I think that's really poor. I mean, and I think Matt's like the nuts and he knows the shit better than anyone, but I really strongly would disagree with that because I mean, think about the situation where the guy's just a moron or an amateur player who doesn't know any better, right? Like he says like 43,000 and he tosses out one 5K chip and then he tosses out another 5K chip and bad players like do all kinds of dumb things, and so unless this guy's like been around the poker world for 15 years and has a reputation or something like that, I don't like that ruling at all.
Yeah, I think clearly Matt's doesn't like what the guy did and he's trying to find some sort of solution or something. But
that's what it sounds like, because especially even the way he phrases it, he says this may or may not have happened at a recent WPT.
Right. All right, let's take a break in case you missed it and go to Mr. Michael Gratz and get some Degen stories from Mike. Mike, it's only been about 8 years, I think, since we had you back on the show. It seems like yesterday. You took down the was it the 5K no limit at the World Series of Poker in 05 or something?
I took down a rebuy in 05. So I believe I bubbled the 5K multiple times, though. So maybe we were doing a show on, breaking
bubble.
Again.
How to bubble.
Adam, that's like possibly the best needle you've ever started an interview with. We haven't interviewed you in about 8 years because that's the last time we feel like you won something of significance. That's a way to get off to a good start on that one.
No, he won money. He's won something. He won money off me at the golf course. That's for sure. Speaking of Degen Stories, let me tell you a quick story here. So we're in the Savage Invitational Golf Tournament every year. It's at Pebble Beach a couple years back. I get in a group with Mike and Matt Affleck and who else was in that group?
Joel Mika?
Oh, Joel Mika, who shot even par like it was nothing. Right, I forgot about Joel. How could I forget about him?
Yeah.
But Mike is, he's hacking it around a little bit, maybe in the first 6, 7, 8 holes. Not doing too much. It's the first time I'd played with him. And then all of a sudden he goes, hey, Schwartz, how about 500? I make par in this hole. It was like a 480-yard par 4 or something. And he wanted 3-1. And I'm like, sure, yeah, I'll give you 3-1. Boom, rolls in the par putt, no problem. And I was digging myself out from there. But It was good fun, Mike. That round was a lot of fun.
Week?
What's that?
How'd you end up that week, Adam? How'd you end up that week against?
Yeah, I did all right. I ended up second in the tournament. I definitely can't complain, but no, it was a fun time. But last week, Mike, we had on Barry G. He was telling stories about David Oppenheimer. No, I think it was mostly about Phil Ivey and Johnny World Hannigan. He was telling us some Degen stories. The listeners love them. When we first thought of this, I thought of a couple of guys that I know that are great storytellers, and you're right at the top of the list. And I know you've seen your share of some funny stuff that's gone on during the poker boom and all around it. Do you have anything for us that the listeners might like?
Well, I hope so, and thank you for the accolade of being a good storyteller. I don't know about that. I think I'm just around a bunch of interesting people, to be honest with you, Adam. Well, but yeah, let's start. Let's start on the the golf theme. I like that. Since probably your only listeners are people that may have come out to the Savage Invitational, and that's being generous. Right. There's been some phenomenal trips that Matt has put on, but there has been some crazy betting stories, and one I kind of want to start with was when Matt started this thing 20 years ago, but maybe around Savage Invitational 16, 17, 18, right in there. He had a trip down to Myrtle Beach, and this is about 2008, 2009, so something in there. But I'd kind of gotten to know the group, and I brought my good friend Chris Bell down. Chip Jett had flown in from Las Vegas. I played a practice round with him, was feeling pretty good about the game. And I knew Chris wasn't that great of a golfer at this time. But I think the second day of the tournament, me and Chris are paired up. And the first day, we had a good time playing golf. And then we took an excursion, a field trip, if you will. It wasn't part of the Savage Invitational itinerary. But, right. One thing led to another. And before you know it, we're hanging out at like 6:15 in the morning at an establishment. We'll call it a bookstore. Right. We were hanging out at a bookstore at 6:15, and our tea time's at 7:20. So we realized we're kind of running a skosh late here, and we got back to the house. I think I closed my eyes for 8 minutes, and then it was on to the golf course. And me and Chris always wager on golf, and as such, we're still inebriated from the bookstore. And, and so, we get to the first tee, and I realized that I'm so, drunk that I forgot my golf clubs. So now I have to rent golf clubs.
Oh, no.
And I'm feeling confident, right? I mean, when it's 7 o'clock in the morning and you're still drunk from the night before, you're pretty confident about your golf game. So, me and Chris, we had our standard bet, and, I asked him if he wanted to, maybe tone it down, like play for nothing. He said, well, we can play for double. And of course I said yes. And, I mean, it felt like
how bad were the rental clubs? How bad were those?
Well, I believe they were a lovely set of Nikes. To be honest with you, Adam, I don't know if I could have played with any golf club in the world that day that would have gotten the ball off the ground and over water. But I think I shot something to the tune of 121.
Wow.
When it was all downhill once I hit hole 6. And I'm passing Chris, like somewhere around the 7th fairway. I'm like, you want to just call it off? I mean, I could tell he's kind of worn out himself. And he said, no, I'm just going to pay off what I end up owing at the end of this round. And what I didn't take into account was how good of a drinking golfer Chris was. Like, he'd had much more experience of that sort of thing than I had. And he waxed me. So I ended up, losing like $12,000 to him that day.
Oh, and, man.
It's not winning $500 from from Adam Schwartz. I'll tell you that. Sinking a putt at one of the most renowned golf courses in the world, but it was all
It's
right.
up there. It's up there.
Chris had a good time.
Yeah.
So that would be my my golf story. I don't know that I can compete along the likes of Ivey and Negreanu from a financial standpoint, but because I know they've had some crazy stories. But how about you, Adam? What's your craziest story?
Golf courses. I've definitely done the same thing. I've wandered out of the strip clubs in Vegas when the sun was rising, and go right to the golf course and play, and that never ends up good for sure.
I always seem to be playing guys that play in our golf tournament. They always seem to be there to pick up the pieces after I've had a hard night, and it's great having friends like that. They're always there for you.
Well, that was we played around this year too at Everwood. What was that course we played in Tahoe?
I felt like we played Edgewood every single day.
That's right, Edgewood every day. We played one
phenomenal course
where with a couple of guys, Joel and somebody else, and they were gambling pretty high too.
They were taking it to the streets, I believe. Two gentlemen out on the course. I don't want to put anybody's business out on the street, but but it's nice playing with people when whether they win or lose, it doesn't matter. And then you hear the sum of money, you're like, wow. But I mean, golf's just one facet of the gambling world, right? I had another. This is a good story. We'll leave this person as we'll just call him Blue,
all right,
because nobody wants it. So this is actually back in 2005. A friend of mine had Blue had a piece of me in the bracelet event that I won, and so we're all downstairs. Final tables going on. They're in the stands, being great supporters and consuming some beverages of their own. And so I ended up winning. And we're going out to party. We're telling everybody we'll meet you out at this place in an hour. We're going to go home and change. Well, one person didn't show up, so we actually, right after I won, we went to the cage. I gave him his share, and then God knows what I did with the rest. But so I give him the share, and it was pretty good chunk. I mean, he had like 75,000. So we were like, Blue, we'll see you later tonight, no problem. And as it turns out, Blue didn't show up because that money never made it to the room. He stopped by the blackjack table on the way up to his room. He lost like 10,000 straight. Gets down like 25, and then gets back to like $1,000 within breaking even. He's like, I'm breaking even. I'm not leaving here till I break even. Unfortunately, none of that 75,000 made it up to the room that night.
He did not break even.
He did not break even either. He broke even on the day. He broke even on the day, I guess.
Easy come, easy go. Exactly. Mike, what I mentioned you're in the fantasy sports industry. What are you up to these days?
Right now I'm working with Fantasy Draft. We're the DFS space has certainly been tumultuous, if you will, but right now with the advent of FanDuel and DraftKings coming together, we're really going to be making a push the end of this NFL season and throughout NBA basketball heading into next NFL season, become the new number 2 player in the space. Fantasy Draft, really great product, easy to navigate, great user interface. I think a lot of people who are into DFS that haven't heard of us would really like what we have to offer.
Awesome. FantasyDraft.com. Go over, check it out. Mikey approved. Mike, thanks so much for joining us, sir.
Thanks for your time, Adam. Always great to be on, and I look forward to donating to your children's college fund the next time I see it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Bye-bye.
What he doesn't know, of course, is that your kids are all going to get hockey scholarships. So that money is actually just going to the beer fund. There's nowhere it's going to
There's no college.
And not to mention, your kids are probably going to go to university in Canada where it's already subsidized, and they're going to have hockey scholarships. So really, this is just going to the Schwartz Beer Fund, isn't it?
And one of the smart things I actually did back in the heydays of internet poker was I put a bunch of money away because my kids were just born. I put a bunch of money away for the kids for because you get grants and stuff here in Canada when you deposit into education funds. So they're going to do all right. They're going to have beer money at the university. So good for them. I remember going there and having to work, so it wasn't a lot of fun. But all right, let's move on with in case you missed it.
Before you move on to the next topic on In Case You Missed It, though, I just came across a tweet, by the way, from Max Silver, and he talks about something we just talked about, which was the deal made between William Kassouf and Patrick Serta that we just finished mentioning. And what Max has an interesting perspective on this is because he actually had a piece of Patrick in the tournament. So he presents a very different view of what actually happened. I'll let you read it. It's over at maxsilver.net. But what happened, the way that Max presents it is that, it actually sounds like Will wanted to play out the tournament, and he was actually convinced by other people to just sort of take the deal and try to parlay that into sponsorships and fame and all the rest of it. So check that out to get a different point of view on the whole William Kassouf making a deal for the trophy thing.
Oh, really? So William wanted to play it out, but
yeah. Basically, they were doing the negotiations. William wanted to, he didn't like that. He knew that he was taking 10K less, or he was being advised that he was going to be about down 9 or 10K in equity. And his friend had told him this, and so he thought about it. There were friends trying to get him to take the deal, and they called the clock on him. He took so long, which I'd never even heard of somebody getting a clock called on them in a tournament negotiation. But with something like 10 seconds left in the clock call, he said deal and shook hands. So that's interesting. It's some dramatic deal making. I wonder if you can watch that on the old PokerStars.tv archives or not.
So the guy wasn't going to offer him his chip equity. So his choices were either take the deal or play it out.
Exactly. He was playing hardball, which makes a lot of sense, knowing that William Kassouf wants these things. And he was playing hardball, and there was no room for negotiation. Will didn't like that, but in the end, he sort of caved.
That seems strange because he didn't end up with a lot extra. He was still going to win a bunch of money, right? If they played it out and he finished second, I think, what did we say? He got 30,000 euro or something more on top.
Yeah, so second place was supposed to be 485,000 euro, and he ends up getting 532 after the deal.
Okay.
So he bumps himself up about 50K, but of course, he's got equity in first place. He's got 20%. If he's 4-to-1 he's got 20% of first place equity. So.
Yeah. Seems strange why he would take it then. If he's getting, I mean, if I'm Kassouf and somebody tries to play hardball with me, I'm the short stack trying to take less than my chip equity. I'm probably not. I'm not taking a deal for less than chip. I'm probably asking for more than chip equity.
Well,
and
I mean,
settle for.
Why are you worth more than Why are you worth more than chip equity? That doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, I'm starting in a negotiation, right? So I'm willing to play it out. Like I'm winning, if second place is 0 and it's all in first prize, it's different. But I'm doing okay today, so I think I'm probably going to play it out.
Okay, but there's no reason that you deserve that the shorter stack deserves more. I mean, they both deserve exactly proportional to what the difference in prize money is, right?
Well, ICM says short stacks are worth more than chips are worth more.
Doesn't apply when it's heads up.
Oh, right. They're heads up. Didn't think of that. Yeah. So I mean, anyway, I guess I'm playing it out in that spot, but it's strange that he would take it. But anyway, let's move on.
It's Will Kassouf who wants to be the winner and have the photo and all that. So
I think there's got to be some part of that in it too. In case you missed it, High Stakes Database has released all the player info that they track. Back in 2014. They allowed players to opt out of the reporting of High Stakes Database on their accounts, meaning that people couldn't access their wins and losses over the period of time. So people who played the high stakes went into their account, said, I don't want my my results posted on High Stakes Database, and you could opt out. Well, High Stakes Database was recently sold, and the new owners felt removing this option retroactively, changing it to all data is out, was in their, and they argue, poker's best interest. Now you got to remember, High Stakes Database only tracks 50, 100, and higher. So this is, nosebleed stakes. 10, 25, 50 are some of the biggest games that run online, and they're not tracked. 10, 20, 25, 50 aren't tracked, where a lot of the people that you think about end up playing and have played a large amount of their hands. Nana Noko, Doug Polk, a lot of players like that. So that data isn't out there anyway. T, what did you think of this? Do you think it's sort of a breach of I can see going forwards coming out and saying, hey, we're removing this opt-out of your information, but we're going to honor it for the time period that you did opt out. But instead, coming out and saying we feel this is in the best interest of poker to release all this information that players didn't want released.
Yeah, it's clearly not. It's clearly in their best interest. I'd be surprised if they give two shits about what poker's best interest is. Like, you're talking about a company that basically goes in and does this without any permission, right? Like, they don't, if Stars or Full Tilt back in the day and so on could make this site like snap their fingers and vanish in the thin air, they absolutely would, because they don't want that information out there. If they wanted that information out there, they would do it themselves. They would be like, here's our biggest winners, and if you don't like it, like, here's what it is. But they don't. There are plenty of good reasons for PokerStars not to publish who their biggest winners and especially biggest losers are, and they consider it a violation of player privacy and personal information. So, High Stakes DB obviously being really, really disingenuous. Now, at the same time, this is technically kind of public information. Like, you can watch any game online, and if you wanted to with a pen and paper, you could write down the results of every pot. Like, theoretically, right? Like, you could do it. But this is whether it's a good thing for poker. No, it probably just means more people are going to start multi-accounting, and the fish hunting only gets worse as you start to collect data on who's the biggest losers in the game.
So their argument is that the high stakes poker drives a lot of traffic, a lot of interest in the game, creates stars. Full Tilt Poker, built their marketing around their nosebleed games for years, and it worked clearly. And their argument is, look, we're gonna try and create stars and heroes and anti-heroes and all this kind of stuff, and this is why we're publishing the data. And clearly they're trying to drive traffic.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say they're not wrong. Like, they're not wrong in saying that this stuff does create a tremendous amount of interest, and this is stuff that we've been talking about since the beginning of time. Like, everybody wants the Railberg, the high stakes games, and it's even better if it's consolidated into a digest of who's won the most and who's the new king of online nosebleed and all that kind of stuff. Of course, people are interested in this stuff, but for them to say that that's the reason, like, no, they're just driving traffic, like you said.
Yeah, and I think it provides a lot of fuel to people who have always believed that. You look at Bodog and some of or Bovada, a lot of the sites that do anonymous or name changes. You can change your name every day and do all kinds of different things. Now, that creates different issues where the public or the player base can't track cheating and stuff like we caught at Ultimate Bet, etc. But for the overall health of the game, it's better if we have anonymous account names or we're allowed to change accounts all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of these things that if people aren't going, like, I've definitely heard this argument made in the past that if people are going to multi-account and get away with it, that everybody just should be allowed to do it. And then of course the downside of it is, like you say, we can't catch the cheaters, and that's a significant problem. Is cheating, are we willing to sort of give that up and give it into the hands of the sites? In the case of Stars, like, I believe very much in their security department. I mean, I have no knowledge of this firsthand, and I haven't for about 11 years. But if there's a site out there that, I do believe in their security practice, it's Stars. Whether even sort of post-Maya era, who knows? For all I know, I don't know anything. I don't have any insider information. But for all, it could be that they don't care nearly as much about policing collusion as they used to. I'd be surprised if that was the case, because it's harmful to them, and therefore they have a very strong incentive to avoid cheating on this. So I would rather it. At this point, maybe anonymous names are better, and just kind of leave the security policing to the security people. But it's less fun. I mean, I always think that it is part of the fun of poker is sort of establishing relationships with people at the table, people that you see over and over. You've seen, how many times have we talked about like a screen name in a final table? Like, oh, I remember that screen name from 8 years ago. That guy is really old school, or the mystery of who's this guy.
Right.
There's a lot of fun that's associated with screen names and their real life counterpart identities.
Fair enough. Let's take a break there, guys. We're going to come back after the break with some more in case you missed it. We've got some mail. We've got some strategy talk with Run It Once coach in the second segment. We'll see when we get it in there. You're listening to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by RunItOnce.com. More right after this.
SharkScope can now add free money to your bankroll, and all you have to do is be an overachiever. SharkScope.com has a fun tab on every graph that says achievements. They're very attainable goals, like won a tournament of more than $100 or played 100 tournaments in a month. Sounds fun, right? Well, now with our partner PKR, you can earn money for those achievements. Simply play on PKR, turn over the achievement cards, rack up points, and win your share of 2,000 euros. Also, you'll be entered into our 1,500 euro free roll just for getting 5 points. See all the details on sharkscope.com and click on the Achievements Challenge in the menu. And don't forget to opt in to participate and also get in on our weekly $10,000 draw. Sharkscope.com, the best for over 10 years. Track your statistics, avoid the sharks, and find easier tournaments at sharkscope.com.
Attention everyone not named Alan Kessler. Have someone you would love to appear on the Pokercast? Have someone you don't want to hear again on the Pokercast? Head on over to the Suggest a Guest thread in the Pokercast forum at 2plus2.com, and Adam will do his best to make you happy. P.S. Chainsaw, you can post too.
Hey Pokercast fans, don't forget to follow me, Adam, and Ross on the old social medias. I'm at TChanPoker on Twitter, and once in a while I'll even talk poker if I'm not trying to hit him in the face. If Adam ever gets home from hockey practice, he tweets at Pokercast Adam, and Ross is at Pokercast Ross whenever he's sweating the Chicagos. Hit us up and try to keep it to 140 or less. I mean, fewer.
Welcome back to the 2+2 Pokercast presented by Run It Once. Let's continue on with some in case you missed it. I don't know if you saw this. David Bazoff, the ex-CEO of Amaya, has dropped his most recent takeover bid. He's still facing insider trading charges. Currently owns 17% of Amaya. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago. He had been putting a bid together to try and take Amaya private. Of course, he was instrumental in setting up buying the Rational Group for Amaya, borrowing a ton of money to do so. And there's a lot of speculation that because of the fact that so much of the money was borrowed to buy Rational Group, they had to change their approach to how they go about running the poker site that's been talked to death. But I'm going to read from his statement. He said, the decision to terminate my attempted acquisition of Amaya was not an easy one. I retained a full suite of advisors, arranged committed financing, and engaged in constructive negotiations with Amaya's board of directors. I submitted an unconditional, fully financed offer at $24 per share, higher than my original announced intention to submit a $21 per share offer. However, during the discussions, it became evident that the share price premium demanded by certain shareholders exceeded the price with which my investors and I would be willing to complete a transaction. So, when something's trading, I think around $20 a share, and somebody comes and offers you $24 a share, it seems like you just don't want that guy to own the company, AT?
Yeah, 19 the current price.
Yeah, and then they offered him a $5. That's a 25% premium on the share price. You think like, wow, if you're one of the big shareholders of that company, you're going to take that.
I think so, but I mean, like you said, the most important thing, still facing insider. Not necessarily the best thing. Indeed.
In case you missed it, the 48th annual World Series of Poker, the next year's version, the dates have been announced. Tuesday, May 30th is going to be the kickoff, and the November 9 will be set on July 17th. It seems like the same dates every year. I mean, it's always the 30th of May, and the 17th of July. Like, I don't even know why at this point it's news that these are the dates.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's just one of these years are going to come out. And it's just okay. We're doing it in November this year, guys.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, it's pretty much like plus minus 1 day this year. Not a whole lot of news really. Like, I mean, I went over the press release and I'm like, well, okay, they're going to do the Colossus. They are going to do the seniors tournament. The first event's going to be the casino employees event. Like, this is pretty much the exact same stuff as last year, but that's fine. I mean, the World Series continues to just be more successful year after year. Last year was a great year for the World Series. So if it ain't broken, don't fix it. I'm happy with that. But I guess the significance of announcing the dates and issuing a press release is that people can get started on housing, which is a useful thing, I think.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants to go down there and they get their apartments, or and announcing the dates of the main event, I think is significant as well. A lot of people will trip just for the main event, which is first July 8 will be the first starting flight this year, and July 17 will be the day that they played out.
July 8th seems later. I think I remember it usually being around the 5th, so maybe it was later last year, but in past years, I guess they're adding events every year, so it does elongate the series.
Usually it comes on a weekend. If it gets pushed forward, it's just because they usually want it to be. I think it's almost always the Saturday, Sunday, and the Monday, or at least it has been for the last 3 years. And so that's again what it is this year: is Saturday the 8th, Sunday's the 9th, and Monday's the 10th.
And we say it every year, but people talk about the November 9 when they should get rid of it, and we announced the dates. It doesn't seem that far away. If we didn't have the November 9, it would have been ages since we knew the World Series of Poker was wrapped up and done. And I just, one of the main reasons I like the November 9 is because the World Series seems like it's, there's stuff going on around the World Series, whether it's the tournament schedule being announced or players talking about this event should be in it, that event shouldn't be in it. The dates are coming up. The November 9 just happened. The November 9's coming up. Who's getting coached? Like, it just creates this almost 12-month calendar of talking about the World Series. And that in of itself is a reason to continue doing it.
Sort of it does for us. I feel like it would be, like, just as much of that would be accomplished by just having it in August, right? If you have this in late August, I mean, I don't know what sports you compete against, because sports-wise, it's a pretty dead time because there's no playoffs. I don't think. Are there any major playoffs in August? I don't think.
No, baseball's getting into the swing of it. Football's just starting, yeah. So no major.
So August. I mean, I feel like you would generate just as much buzz by having the shorter layoff. I was originally a big critic of the November 9, but I mean, it's worked. And, I'm happy to say that I'm wrong about that one. So it looks like they'll keep doing it. But, yeah, I mean, I feel like if you did it in August, you wouldn't get a lot of the issues that came up. Like, people could still hire coaches and people could still do things, and you would still get this buzz. And it would be a little bit of a rush for the people doing the television production to be able to tell the story that quickly. But that's potentially outweighed, or at least mitigated by the fact that it would become more relevant. You're not watching stuff that happened like 4 months ago. You're only watching stuff that's a couple weeks behind.
Yeah. All right. In case you missed it, a judge has decided, you didn't miss it because we've talked about it already. A judge decided that Ivey has to pay the Borgata $10.1 million in the edge sorting case that was brought against him. They won $9.6 million. So we did mention that I think there's interest, and the craps winnings. So Ivey wins a bunch of money, goes and plays craps, and he wins, I think, $500,000 or something like that, with the money that he'd won edge sorting, and the Borgata asked for that back, and the judge agreed. And you said you were aghast, and I understand why. But I think if, let's say, he would have lost $500,000 instead of won $500,000, and the case proceeded exactly like it did, do you think that the judge would make him pay? Like, he could say, look, I took $500 of that money and I lost it at craps, so we're going to take that off the $9.6 million that I won, and now we're down at $9.1 million. Do you know what I mean? Like,
based on what this judge has already said, based on that, no, I don't think there's any chance of that. I just think they would say, you owe them $9.6 million, not you owe them $9.1 million. He would straight up say $9.6 million because you're expected to lose to the house, right? That's been their argument. That's what's been their argument all along. The good news, as you mentioned, the judge doesn't buy the argument about the theoretical win or the comps, but still not a great look, I think. But certainly not terrible, except for the craps thing, I think.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens. I'm sure there'll be more appeals launched, and there's obviously a lot of incentive for Ivey and his lawyers to appeal this as high as they can go, so they don't have to pay the $10 million. And there's this question of let's go back to when Ivey knew that he had this edge on before he went into the casinos, and he's got it. I mean, this is back a few years now, right? I want to say it's 2 or 3 years, and he brought $1 million, and we talked about the risk of ruin and stuff like that. You wonder if Ivey sold off any of the action and said, let some of his friends in, said, hey, I got this. Believe me, he probably didn't even have to explain it. He could just go. Ivey could go to his buddies and go, hey, give me $200,000. You got 20%. Trust me, and they'll just hand over the $200,000. If Ivey,
it wouldn't be shocking if he did sell action. But again, if he's done the math on it, he knew he basically can't lose. So
true.
I don't know that there's a point to selling action versus just playing smaller.
So he wins the $10 million, and it's disputed pretty quickly, but I don't think anybody really thought that he would lose because he has the money in hand. Borgata's probably making rattlings about suing and talking to his lawyers, but if you're Ivey and you've won $10 million without doing anything wrong, you probably don't think you're ever going to lose a court case. So $10 million is a lot of money. Maybe all of a sudden they got to come back and give the money back or pay the money back somehow. I wonder, and especially the same thing happened with Crockford's in England, although he never got the money. But you wonder, does Phil have $10 million lying around? I guess that's we obviously don't know his financial situation, but it's something to think about. I mean, it's it might put him in a tough spot.
Yeah, I honestly I hope he spent it all on hookers and blow and moves to Europe and said, "Screw you guys."
Just renounces his citizenship. Yeah, that'd be good. All right, why don't we do some 140 or less?
It's 140 characters. That's it. I love hashtags. I love all of them.
Terrence Chan
needs more than 140 characters to express himself.
140 or less.
At Stealth Monk, commenting on the much talked about Will Kassouf deal this week, he says it reminds me of Mike McDonald, 89, and I chopping the first 200 rebuy on stars, and he insisted on a penny more than Evie, or a penny more in Evie than me, or something. I forget. Hashtag outplayed.
Like a boss.
That's good. Brandon Shack Harris, old friend of the show, at Oscillator WSOP, playing Christmas OFC with Dan Zach, or at Dan Zach, must alternate red and green in the middle. Abridged royalties. Ho, ho, ho. So I don't know if you saw the screen cap of this tee, but they're playing OFC, Open Face Chinese Poker, and of course it's a 13-card game, 5 in the bottom, 5 in the middle, 3 on the top. And in the middle, the rule was you had to alternate red and green. It had to be, of course, a red card, a diamond, or a heart, and green in the 4-color deck is clubs. So it had to go either heart, diamond, club, and heart, diamond in the middle, which, wow, that's taking OFC to a completely new strategic level, how you would...
I just looked it up while you were talking, and yeah, he managed to get a straight, on this particular screenshot, I mean, it's selected, but he manages to get a 10-high straight in the middle by playing 9 of hearts, 10 of clubs, 8 of hearts, 6 of clubs, 7 of hearts. I mean, that is seriously worth some royalties if you can get a valid straight in the middle. That is fantastically awesome. His poor opponent has ace queen high in the middle right now, and is just still drawing live to foul. That's funny.
At Adrian Phoenix, this is High Stakes Poker in 2016, and he includes a screenshot of some chat at PokerStars, and here goes the chat. It's high stakes poker. It's between True Teller and Lot Nice. And True Teller says, "Go webcam?" ? So this is True Teller playing heads up against Lot Nice, saying, "I want to see you on webcam."
I can be Lot Nice if you want to be True Teller.
Okay. So go webcam?
Can't.
I need Dream Machine protection. Why?
Naked.
I can ship you clothes.
I play best without.
Good game, then. It's a gentleman's game, not a naked man's game.
Gentle naked man game.
I go play Comic-Con. He is respectful with my money, at least.
You are very thin-skinned these days.
Just don't like naked man. If you need to use Dream Machine while playing, yeah, you can just tell.
I love
That's hilarious.
The Ross doing the Lot Nice impression was probably the most fun you've had all week, right?
I like how they respect the English at the table. I think they're both Russian. They could just be
hilarious. That's that. I didn't realize this. That now when you play or when they play heads up high stakes poker, they're worried about the Dream Machine, the much talked about PLO Dream Machine that some people claim some people have and others deny that they have it. But he wanted to have Dream Machine protection to be able to watch this player click buttons that he was playing against. I guess this is a standard thing now.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably heard of the way that people can take like exams online through like online courses. Like if you have to like finish your exam remotely, I've heard of even people getting job interviews. So there's a story I was reading about somebody he was getting a job interview on Amazon, and he was doing it through Skype, like, or whatever, through webcam. And the person making him take the exam made him set up like 3 webcams or something like that to make sure he didn't use any sort of outside material. Made him do like a 360 review of the room to show that there's no like notes on the table or anything like that. And he was only allowed to use the bathroom at like a scheduled time of the chooser of the testers things. So yeah, I mean, I guess like that's actually well beyond what True Teller's asking in this situation, because honestly, like if you had a webcam, that's not actually Dream Machine protection, as he puts it. And these guys are playing for obviously hundreds of thousands of dollars, but amusing for sure.
Let's end the 140 or less there, and let's talk some strategy. Let's bring in from runonce.com. Let's bring in Zachary Freeman to talk some Los Angeles poker scene and PLO stuff. Zach Freeman, welcome to the Pokercast, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You are a coach over at runonce.com. I mentioned earlier in the show you're an LA live grinder, right? You play at well, I've seen you on live at the Bike. I imagine you play there in the Commerce and the different clubs. Is that your normal poker routine?
Yeah, that's correct. I play all live, and throughout my career I almost played all live. I kind of move around different spots in LA. I don't really have one spot that I stick to all that much. And, kind of surprisingly, the biggest casino historically in LA, Commerce, is the location I play the least.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, that's just been I never really – I think I found better games overall, throughout the years, and just became more comfortable with different spots. And but I did start playing there more recently. So anyways, yeah, I pretty much play everywhere except not that many private games. Those are just every once in a while.
Talk to us. So for listeners who are in LA or traveling to LA, they're poker players, and where give them an idea where to go in LA for different games. Obviously, the Commerce has a wide range of games. You're sort of in the middle of between that and the Bike. You're sort of in the middle of I guess East LA you would call it. And maybe some people aren't comfortable taking a bus down there if they don't have a car, but. Where would you tell people to go play? If they wanted to play low limit, no limit hold'em, or PLO, or mixed games and limit. What's your advice there?
Yeah, so if you're going to play no limit, anything from low limit, no limit to, mid stakes, so anything up to, well, let's just say if anything up to 5-5 no limit, I would just pick wherever is more convenient. If you're looking for the best game, I don't know specifically which of those is better, but every single casino in LA has all the small stakes games for no limit. If you move up to 5-10, there's a game that runs at Hollywood Park daily. There's a game that runs at Hawaiian Gardens daily. There's a game at Commerce. And the bike doesn't have quite as many games as they used to. All these casinos go in and out of favor, and actually the Commerce, which was, what do you call it, the mother boss of all the casinos, it's actually kind of dwindling that position a little bit. Hawaiian Gardens did a complete renovation, and it was more than a renovation. They built a new casino where they used their casino basically in a permanent tent. So now they have, a Vegas-style kind of casino there with lots of tables. Hollywood Park did the same thing. They just did a major renovation. And ironically, I used to play a lot at Hollywood Park when it was super grungy. And then just the way the games happened, I've been there once since they made it super nice. So maybe I just have a love for the grunge. I don't know. But, so for 5-10, that's what you're looking at. If you want to play bigger no limit than that, there's not that many games that run. You only can play at the Commerce if you're, looking for a game 10-20 or bigger. And then when you switch over to PLO, the bike used to have a PLO game that went regularly, but now that's moved over to the Commerce. And there's also a PLO game at Hawaiian Gardens. That game is most often half high-low, half high. And it runs usually like 10-20 pot limit. Bigger game than that, you have 25-50 PLO you can play at the Commerce, except that game used to go every day, and it's been a little bit more sporadic too. And that kind of covers it. Me personally, I've been playing more mixed games recently, and there's some games that have been running some higher stakes games mix at Commerce and at Hawaiian Gardens. So that kind of covers the spectrum of games that people might be looking for.
I heard there was an Omaha 8 half limit hold'em at Hollywood Park. I think it was 40-80. Is that right?
Unless they just started it, they historically have had just a 40-80 08 game.
Oh, it was an 08. Okay.
All 08, yeah. And I used to play there a lot, but I'm just not sure exactly what runs. And we used to run a 25-50 PLO game there, but I don't really think the viewers want to hear what the uses are. So, I guess that's. But the casinos, most of them are on, they're on the poker apps now, so you can kind of check that out too. Hawaiian Gardens hasn't gotten up there yet, but Commerce is on Bravo, and then the bike is on Poker Atlas. So, yeah.
Oh, perfect. Check those out if you're in the LA area. Zach, talk about doing videos. I watched some of your videos that run at once. I thought they were very good. They're different in nature than a lot of videos, of course, because you do live commentary over live hands, a lot of live at the bike stuff, and hand reviews and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's got to be a bit different, a bit more challenging in that you're not talking about, runner XYZ, some random screen name. You're talking about guys that, and a lot of the games you're in them at the time, you're talking about your hands. But I would imagine, you're playing high enough stakes where the guys that you're playing against are probably watching the videos and getting your insight on that. Is that counter it? Does that affect how you go approach these hands?
Yeah. So there's a lot. I have a lot of thoughts on all of that. First off, I'm getting to the point right now where I'm doing less videos. I've completed my contract with them for now, and kind of doing it on basically whenever I feel like I want to do some more videos. But I do have concerns with just putting so much information out there about myself, and educating the field. Now, when it comes to PLO, I feel a little bit more comfortable putting what I think is good content out there because there's so many other good PLO video makers that if I don't do it, there's still going to be good content out there. Whereas, things like the mixed games, which I've put a lot of time in away from the tables, improving and running spots and simulations and all that, I don't feel as comfortable sharing that kind of stuff because it's more coveted, and there's not, they can't, if I don't put it out there, there's not somebody else for them to just go run to and learn. So it is kind of this difficulty I have because at one point, on one side, I feel an obligation to put the best content I can out there. So when I make a video on a subject, I have to put everything I can into it. I'm not going to hold back, but there are certain, games and subjects that I do avoid just even covering. So
yeah,
let's see.
Zach, sorry to interrupt you there. That's a really honest. I certainly appreciate the honest take on that. But it sort of does leave the question because there's always been that conflict, I think, with people who teach and people who coach. So if somebody were to ask you I want to, really get better at, mixed games, whether they're sort of the traditional mixed games, your studs and your limit hold'ems and your 08s, or whether it's these sort of new modern era, Fidesi, Badusi, Super Stud, all these kind of things. Where do you direct them, and how do you sort of help them out as somebody who's at least partial job is instructing poker players?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's been initially before all these training sites, all the information on how to play poker was kind of coveted, again, to use that word, by the poker pros. And then with the online poker, and then the card runners, and the deuces cracked, and then the run it once, and all those sites, there is just an abundance of information, and people didn't even think twice about giving out the info, I think, because there was still plenty of, soft games to play. And I think now in I think there's a trend that for the games that are less developed and less played and less literature on them, people are making less content on them. And so somebody who wants to try to learn those games is going to have a harder time, and they're going to have a time a little bit more analogous to people who tried to learn poker, back in the day. That said, there's a lot of tools out there that they can make a lot of progress that, people couldn't in the past. So just analysis tools. And so I guess what I would tell them is first start with the basics of just read your 2+2 books. And for instance, when I was trying to learn get better at some of the stud games and everything, I bought your, the Ray Z books and all those. And I learned what I can, but they kind of just teach you how to play super tight, stay out of trouble, and they're not going to teach you a very in-depth amount of info that's going to help you beat high stakes. So, but it's a good basis. So you start there, and then, try to find your typical ways, or try to find other people that you respect in their game. And I tried to reach out to a couple of other really good pros that were experts in those limit games that I was weak at, and try to do maybe some exchange coaching where I can help them in PLO and things like that. But the thing that helped me the most, and it might not be for everybody because I have a math background and just kind of a training on how to attack problems. I used to work as an engineer for many years, is that I just went and I started running numbers. I started crunching numbers for days and days. I took basically 3 months off of playing poker and tried to get up to speed and surpass, the level of play that I was facing. So I think you just have to do all three of those things. And I think it's inevitable that there will be some content that is released as time goes on. So.
Zach, I wanted to ask you, as a guy who plays a lot against, in the LA scene, you're going to know a lot of the guys you're playing against, but I'm sure that there's also a lot of situations that you're going to end up in games against guys that you don't know. And, there's a lot of talk about, and a lot of people think about poker in a different way now that, I get to this spot and I've got a bluff with X percent of frequency in this spot because I don't want to get exploited. But if you're running up against a guy who you're never going to play against again, he's clearly not a thinking player. Like he's just going to do what he's going to do with his hand 100% of the time, not care that I'm going to need to bluff in this spot. He's checked and going to call any size bet and on the river kind of thing. So talk to me a little bit about, do you change your play when you're playing against those tough regs where you're going to have to balance your range and spots, but then you go play a hand against a guy who you don't? Do you just completely shut that out and just maximize this particular hand instead of thinking about all the future hands down the road that you're going to play with them?
Yeah, so I mean, our goal should always be to play every hand in its highest EV. One misconception about playing GTO poker is that you actually never want to make a play that's lower EV just to protect your range in the future. It's kind of thought about backwards. Like you don't want to check call slow play a hand here because your check call range is normally weak. You don't do that to make profit later. You actually, if you choose to slow play, it's because your range is weak normally, and you may face a lot of triple barrels. And this is the way that doing it, slow playing occasionally will actually produce more value than fast playing. So I'm kind of jumping on a tangent, but what I'm trying to get across is that I'm always trying to make the most money with every single hand. So if I face a player that I have a really strong read on, I think they, call way too much, then certainly I'm just going to play completely unbalanced and never bluff. And then you have, let's say you have a tough pro that you're playing against, and you just, they're really good, and you're not sure what their frequencies are in this spot, whether they're over bluffing or they're under bluffing, and then you kind of have to just revert to your best approximation of what a GTO calling frequency would be, let's say, on the river. And then you have your other spots, which are actually more common and are more in line with what you were asking, I think, is like if you're facing a player who's clearly bad, like you've seen them make some bad plays, but you're not sure how the badness will correlate in this spot. So let's say he's in a spot where, once again, we'll just look at the simple situations where he bets on the river and you have a bluff catcher. So the guy is bad, he's for sure unbalanced. He's either way over bluffing or he's way under bluffing in this spot. But you don't know which one. Well, you can go two approaches. One, you can just do the same thing you do against the really good player and just call down at your proper frequencies to be balanced, okay? And that's going to produce profit. But one other thing you can do is you can make, even though you don't know anything about the player, you can still make an exploitive play by making a assumption based on a player pool, based on the profile that he fits. So we know he's a bad player. We know he's, let's say, really young, and he seems, hyper or something, whatever. You can extrapolate some small reads to say, hey, people who fit this profile, even though I don't know him, are going to be probably bluffing too much here, something like that. So I guess that's how I would approach all these different player profiles you're going to face.
Awesome. I was watching one of the videos, Zach, and Lyman was commentating, and you'll probably remember this. It was live at the bike. You were on it, and you were dissecting some of the hands. And Lyman makes a comment, something along the lines of, "Lots of people are they've gone broke trying to bluff Zach." And I thought that was funny. Lyman's obviously going for humor. But do you think that image is warranted? Are you aware of it? And Is it a conscious effort to project this, or just sort of a natural result of your playing style?
Well, let me think about that. I think that I get both sides of it, to be honest. So I think that's probably a sign of being a good player, because some people see me as a total nit, and then some people see me as a calling station. So, it's very situational. I always needle back to Abe when he uses that line is, yeah, you see me never fold, but when I do call, like, how many times is my hand not good? I guess I get that reputation from him, because if I have a read that my hand's good, I don't really care how weak my hand is, as long as it's beating enough of his bluffs, and I'll go ahead and make some light call downs. But yeah, it's mostly Abe just kind of having humor. So I don't know really. I don't know what my image is, to be honest. So.
What's your chance to get back at Abe? Is he a nit, or is he a station? I mean, how do you see Abe?
Well, I have no beef with him. He's a friend of mine, so I can only just really give you compliments about him. Actually, I mean, he would agree with this. He's not the world's best poker player by any means. He's good enough at pretty much every game he sits in. He's not going to sit. He's just a very smart gambler. He's not going to sit in a game where he's a dog. He's good with table talk. He's good enough at the math. He's good enough at player reads, and so he's just one of those guys that have made money long term throughout the years. He would not hesitate to say that if he and I played poker, that he would lose long term against me. But he's just one of those guys I respect for, being very well rounded, and yeah.
Well, and he makes a good commentator. He's watching any of the Live at the Bike.
Yeah, he's hilarious. Yeah. I mostly see him nowadays on the golf course, and that's the spot where I never beat him. So.
You're not getting enough shots. Zach, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. If anybody wants to see the videos, head on over to runatonce.com. And Zach Freeman's got a bunch of cool PLO type live stuff, hand reviews. I watched a bunch of them today, and they're a lot of fun to watch. Zach, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Have a good night.
What's up, guys? If you're serious about online poker tournament statistics, you got to check out sharkscope.com. They've been the leader in online poker tournament tracking for over 10 years. If you've ever had the experience of being in an online tournament and being worried that your opponent might be a dangerous shark, sharkscope.com will tell you. And your first 5 searches every day are free. If you log in with your Facebook account, they'll double that to 10 searches. So get on over to sharkscope.com, track your stats, and improve your win rate today.
Okay, people. Most of the kittens have perished. There are a few left you can save, though, and here's how to do it. Get involved with the Pokercast by emailing your questions, suggestions for the show, or even record a sound clip. Adam will be using the best ones on the air. Well, let's face it, probably the worst ones as well. I can see you there at your computer. Send an email right now. Totally disagree with one of Adam's takes last week? Send an email. Love last week's interview? Email. Want to know how much cash Adam has on him right now? Email. Pokercast at 2plus2.com is the address. Ship the funny to Adam today.
Hey, T-Chan here. Now that you've been listening to me and Adam give you the latest news in the poker world, it's time for you to give your 2 cents. So come hang out with the rest of the Pokercast Nation on the forums at pokercast.2plus2.com. There you can leave feedback about the show, give the world your hot takes on this week's stories, or just leave Roscoe your best sports betting advice. He needs the help. That's the forums at pokercast.2plus2.com. The best part? It's available no matter how many miles you are from Kells.
Hey, poker fans, don't forget about the 2plus2.com digital magazine. Each month, a wide array of poker professionals and media write fascinating articles about the game you love. Want to learn about big blind versus small blind hand ranges? How about optimal Jeopardy daily double strategy? Topics like those and many others are covered every month. Head on over to 2plus2.com to see what the magazine has to offer this month.
Welcome back to the 2plus2 Pokercast, presented by runitOnce.com. Let's get to the mailbag.
And now, That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac? I'm dying to talk about the mail with you all day, okay?
Mailbag. Email number 1.
Art writes, I'm writing from Los Angeles, which is 5,124.32 miles from Cal. Sorry, I'm unable to find a way to convert it miles to C cups. I'm a long-time listener and I absolutely love the show. I haven't played cards or stepped into a casino in over 2 years, and listening to the show is the only whiff I get of my playing days of playing cards. Thank you for continuing to put on the show. Money. Week after week. The Degen stories that people have been writing in about have got my juices flowing. So I thought I'd write in with one of my favorite home game, private game stories. Back between 2005 2008, I used to be a poker dealer at one of the local casinos in LA. One of the shifts would usually get off around 3 a.m., and a lot of the dealers would still want to hang out. On one of the after-hours establishments was in a strip mall with a back room run by a bookie we'll call Jimmy. It's pretty much a 24/7 operation. There are usually 2 tables going at any time. There were adult drinks and snacks that were always available. The crowd was easily 90% Chinese and Vietnamese, with the occasional 10% being other Asians. If you're one of Jimmy's customers or knew a dealer, you were pretty much welcome to Jimmy's place.
Sounds like a good bookstore.
It does, yeah, that's right. The busiest day of the week was Wednesday, when everybody had to come in and settle their bets, and the majority of the weekend dealers were off. One Wednesday night I was playing, and one of the dealers got a text from another dealer that was working. The text was saying that a guy I will call Uncle Tran, one of the regulars at the casino, just hit the double super bad beat jackpot. Hey, Uncle Tran just hit 60 grand on the bad beat jackpot. He's a furniture store owner known to gen it up, so everybody was pretty happy for him. About 30 minutes later, Jimmy came to the table next to me and says, "Lock up this seat for Uncle Tran." And everybody erupts with some version of, "Jimmy, lock me up a seat there too," and people will start to laugh. Uncle Tran finally arrives, waving 10K in the air. "Come and get it, motherfuckers! Ha ha!" I know you're imagining Mr. Chow from The Hangover in your head, but Uncle Tran is more like a Vietnamese Al Bundy. After huddling with Jimmy for a bit, he sits in a 1-2 no-limit table, drinking up a storm. It's a $200 buy-in, but he sits and yells, "Hey, Jimmy, I'm buying in for $500," and Jimmy gives the nod. For the next hour or so, Uncle Tran runs his $500 into about $3,000 from what I can see from the other table. He's bullying people around or getting in the second pair and backdooring into something to win a huge pot. He's sending people home, and all the regulars are getting shots at him. I think we all know where this is going. The best part of all this to me is that no matter how many times I hear this kind of story, I still find it so juicy and I'm always hooked. Anyway, it's pretty obvious to me that I wasn't going to be able to sit at this table, so I just headed home. The next day at work, I'm running into one of the dealers that was at Jimmy's that night. He said that they ended up bumping up the game to 5-10, and Uncle Tran lost the 10K he walked in with. He kept also borrowing from Jimmy to try and get it all back. I was told that he ended up owing Jimmy 12K before Jimmy sent him home. From what I've heard, Jimmy still has the place and not much has changed. I drive by Uncle Tom's furniture place all the time, and the going out of business sign still gets updated monthly, so I guess everything's fine with them. I love my family life right now, but I do miss gambling it up. I hope to get back into it in some form when the kids get a bit older. Until then, I'll keep listening to the Pokercast and get a taste of my past life. I've seen that movie a few times, Terrence. Have you? I mean, that seems pretty standard.
Yeah, when you said like booking name Jimmy, it's like, do they have any other names?
Yeah, no
just Asian
Jimmy.
I was thinking it's great that Qui Win is going to be the ambassador, and he can get these guys into gambling.
Yeah, get them into the World Series of Poker, gambling it up.
Qui Nation.
Email number 2.
Seth says, "I'm looking for any insights against spewy players. On one session, I ran into a similar situation with 2 spewers, one out of position and the other in position. And first, I'll discuss the out of position hand. I've been playing at the same table with this spewy for a few hours, and he's stuck 400. I've stolen money from him, small pots, blah, blah, blah. On this hand, spewy opens to 25 and a 1-2 live cash game from middle position. Yeah, that's fairly spewy opening for 12 big blinds.
Yeah.
And it's folded to me in the big blind with jacks. I have 600, and he has 220 remaining. Since I've classified him as any 2 cards or spewy, I give opening no credit, and his range could be anywhere. Barring a horrendous flop, I'm going to see all the cards for the maximum amount of money. Begs the question, why don't you re-raise pre-flop? But anyway, flop becomes 7 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, 2 of spades. Spewy continues for 25. I raise to 75. He jams for 195, and I snap call with no hesitation. Unfortunately, he turns over 7, 6 of hearts. The board blanks out, and there turns a 4. The river is a 2, and he makes a better 2 pair. Should I change his mindset for these two players versus these two players? It worked out this time, but instead of the homer in ball, maybe play small ball versus any 2 cards in sites. I'm a new listener, and I don't know however far it is I am from wherever it is you are from. Thanks for the great show.
Do you think I care?
You're at a different distance from all of us, depending on where you... Well, not even depending, because we're all 3 of us in different locations this week. So, I mean, this is a... And I mean, if your assumption right off the top is this guy's playing like any 2 cards or practically any 2 cards, then you have the 5th best hand in No Limit Hold'em, so you should probably re-raise pre-flop. And another thing to sort of keep in mind here is that a lot of times people are very spewy pre-flop, but they're not necessarily spewy post-flop.
Right.
Which is not to say that you should fold the jacks here. I don't think that's right, but it's to say that you don't assume that the guy just has whatever, like queen 10 miss here, and that your jacks are just way good on every single flop. That's sort of my thoughts.
So what I'm going to say here is you've got to be careful on who you consider spewy and what they do to consider spewy. Now, this guy opened with 25 in a 1-2 game. I'm going to guess he was spewy, but be careful on who you call spewy, because a lot of players who are good will look spewy, and then you get 100 big blinds in, and you're up against 2 pair with 2 jacks. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of people that give off that spewy sort of look, except when all the money goes in, they've got the best hand a lot of the time. And a lot of the reason it's an art form. They cultivate that spewy look so they can get you to do exactly this. Like, maybe this guy isn't the guy I'm talking about, but just in general, if you're going to see every card to the river against a guy you think is spewy, that's going to get you in really big trouble sometimes, especially when you get deeper. That's all I'll say.
I agree. And I've played with a lot of really well-known players who, in the first stage of, say, a tournament, will sit down and they will turn over all kinds of, and this will happen especially in something like a 1K WSOP tournament, and then people will make these false assumptions. Oh, I've seen this guy on TV, like he's a total maniac, like what's he doing? And then they just dump chips to him later in the hand when he's just clearly got a set. There's definitely like an art form to making yourself look like you're going to give you're giving more action than you really are.
Yeah.
Email number
3.
Dylan writes, "Hey guys, it's me again. I called about the pocket nines underage hand. You guys called me Bill. My name's Dylan, but no hate. Just wondering how to introduce more people to the game. Since there's no online poker besides Ignition and ACR in Myrtle Beach, so it's hard to introduce people to the game. Only got one person onto Ignition so far, and he ran 25 into 400 this month. How can I convince college kids to play poker more? P.S. Shout out Tonka and Doug Polk, and please make me the back then drop." How do you con people? Not con. I guess how do you talk people into playing online poker? I don't know that it's your job to one by one get college, like individually talk college people into playing poker. So, you're talking. Unless you're an affiliate, yeah, maybe he is.
You of all people, the guy that got the entire city of Vancouver, British Columbia, circa 2001, to play on Party Poker.
Well, I'm not sure that he's asking that, but if that's the case, then that's a different story. But if he's just doing it to, I want to play against more people on Ignition, I'm going to go, talk to each person individually. It's going to be a long road. I mean, people, it's just sort of this in poker the interest in poker has naturally waned after the ridiculous, unsustainable, curve that it went on. Are you going to be able to? And poker's on television less. People are exposed to it less. They're less interested in learning it or playing it. But I mean, as far as getting people to play local home games, I think that's a different story. Like if you're going to set up a game and enjoy or invite a bunch of people that make it fun. Like make it a small game where nobody's really going to get hurt. And make it fun for people, but make it big enough that you can, it's not just, it's still interesting to everybody. So yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I'll say there.
Right. My thought on this was sort of, I mean, if you're going after this college age demographic, then, well, you should probably go to the colleges. And it seems perfectly fine to me. I mean, check with the local laws in your area. The setup, just post some signs that say, hey, we're running a home poker game. We're looking for interested in people, like text this number or whatever. I mean, you want, again, this is really important that you keep the game small, because now you get into issues with safety and security, and like if your game gets robbed and all this kind of stuff, and you'll be playing with strangers. Maybe you want to do it in public or something, who knows? But again, if it's small stakes, then hopefully, the criminals will leave you alone and the cops will leave you alone, and you'll get some people to hone your skills against it. If that's what you're really going for, then some signs on the college campus, or modern day equivalent. I'm sure there's like message boards and stuff like that. But Adam and I are old. We don't really know what happens in colleges these days. We assume there's some sort of online message board. Maybe you could do something like that. It's worth a try. Dylan, not Bill.
Email number
004. Hit my Jones up on the low.
Patrick writes, hey guys, maybe I can get the number 4 drop. Well,
look at you.
2 quick questions. Do you have any tips for keeping track of the size of the pot? I try my best to keep track, but a lot of the time I lose track of the pot size.
The most you can bet or raise is the size of a pot.
I mean, I think it just becomes natural after a while. I don't know that I do anything specific to keep track of a pot. I just seem to always... It's almost subconsciously, in my head, I've got a rough estimate of the size of the pot. Now, when you're playing pot limit Omaha, the pot gets pretty big. You can take your time and think through the bets and guessannate it that way. I hesitate.
You're allowed to in Parliament.
Yeah, I hesitate to do that. I don't know why. I can't specifically say why. I don't like asking the dealer how much is in the pot, but I just do. So I like to be able to come up with that number myself. I don't know if maybe as a dealer made a mistake one time or something. I don't even know why I do it. But I mean, I think, when you play enough poker, you just start to, have a rough idea where you're at all the time if you're paying attention. And so that's sort of how I do it. I don't really have any tricks. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I more or less agree that, with some time it becomes natural. But I think a lot of things matter. Like how many people were in the pot tends to make a big difference, because if it's a heads-up pot, it's generally easy to backtrack and say, like, okay, well, we bet 1,100 on the turn and 3,000, or 1,100 on the flop and 3,000 on the turn. So, you just kind of do the math. And the exact number isn't really that important, especially for no limit hold'em. It's not that big a deal. It's actually much more important, I think, for limit games to know how many bets are in there. And that's relatively easy if you can just remember how many people were in the hand on every street. Right, so if you were 4 ways to the flop for raise, then that's 8 small bets. I mean, what's the blinds? Then if you had a bet and 2 calls, then that's 3 more small bets, and then you can just sort of track it in there. And with practice, I think you'll be able to figure it out.
I was just going to say, I think back to our roots, and you and I started playing in the same 10-20 limit hold'em game at the Holiday Inn in Vancouver. And you'd get to the river, everybody'd fold, and you'd be heads up, and somebody'd bet, and you'd have to call with like 5th pair, and somebody was bluffing with 4th pair because there's 73 big blinds in the pot, and you just kind of have to toss one in, and the guy goes 4th pair, and you go, that's good,
Yeah, those are always fun.
You look stupid.
All right, our pretty brilliant, fantastic 8-way to the flop games for the campus that we play in. Patrick's second question as we get on there. Can you explain BB per 100? I've heard you and other poker players use this term. I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about. Thanks for answering the questions. He also goes on to mention that he signed up at Run It Once for the Essentials plan, and he's been blown away with great content at such a low price. Thanks for recommending it. That's awesome. We're really glad to hear.
That's correct.
And I'm sure Mr. Galfond and the rest of our overlords will be happy to hear it too. BB per 100. It's a very simple metric that explains how much money you've historically won over your poker career, or say in a month or in a year or something like that. It's the number of big blinds per 100 hands that you've won. So if your regular game is, say, 1-2 no limit hold'em, and say you won $2,000 over some trying to keep track of all these numbers in my head. If you won $2,000 over 500 hands, then you won 1,000 big blinds. Then over 500 hands, so your BB per 100 would be 2. So you won 1,000 big blinds in 500 hands. Wait, is that right?
I think so. Sounds right.
Yeah,
to
it's
me.
a number. Okay, it's the number of big blinds you won for every 100 hands. You could also express BB per 100 as like a mistake. So, for example, people often say that like folding here would be a mistake worth like 3 big blinds. So if you did it 100 times, that would be like 300 big blinds, which would obviously
somewhat catastrophic
mistake. So yeah, that's BB per 100.
Math is idiotic.
I mean, I think you got to be careful with big blinds per 100. You need a pretty big sample size for it to be, as far as I can understand, at least you need a pretty big sample size for it to be accurate. I think a bad player can run a couple big blinds per 100 for a decent sized sample. So, and also people use it to estimate their edge, right? They'll say, oh, that game is worth 2 big blinds per 100.
I think that's the most common use. I think that's the most common usage these days, is sort of estimating edges of a particular situation. So like you could say that this game on this corner of the room is worth like 10 BB 100, but this game at this end of the room is only worth 2 BB 100, and they could be different stakes games. So it's just a way of normalizing it, because to say that I make $500 an hour is not very useful, right? So if I make $500 an hour, that doesn't mean anything. If my regular game is 400, 800, that's not as significant as if my regular game is 30-60. If my regular game is 30-60 and I make $500 per hour, I'm probably the best player on earth. But if it's if it's in a 400, 800 game, it means I'm pretty good. I can beat a 400, 800 game. But it means I also have a lot of associated variance compared to my actual expectation in the game.
So back in those early days that we were talking about earlier, T, did you keep first of all, did you keep track of your data?
Yeah, absolutely. Every second.
And do you remember calculating big blinds per 100 back then?
Not big blinds per 100. I remember I was making like something like $28 an hour. And so, I mean, if we probably weren't even playing 35 pounds an hour in those days. Those games were probably slow.
Yeah.
It's probably closer to like 25 to 30. So, I mean, I guess if you're talking about, I guess I made something like $80 per 100. So it would be 4 big bets per 100 in that case. So I guess eight big blinds per 100.
Right. Good. All right, we're gonna end there. We've got some more emails. We'll get to them. When are we going to do the next show? Ross, you're back in a couple of days, I'm guessing?
Yeah, I'm back in about 6 days, and back to the first world internet. So nice. We'll organize something. We might
get one out
back
before the end of the year.
Yeah, we'll try and get one out maybe next Wednesday, the 28th. We've got some more emails, but I want to hear your Degen stories. Everybody out there has one, or a good one, and not just by email. I want you guys to call in. We need voicemails. Our voicemail number is 1-702-799-9949. 702-799-9949. Call in. Don't talk for 10 minutes because it's going to be hard for us to run a 10-minute phone call. But keep it to a few minutes. But give us your best Degen story. You can be anonymous. You don't have to. You can run it through a computer voice simulator if you think people are going to recognize your voice. You can do all kinds of fun stuff, but give us some of your Degen stories. We'd love to hear them. As always, head on over to the Pokercast forum and post in the show thread and all the other fun threads we have over there. Thanks to Zach from runatoncE.com for joining us. And thanks to Michael Gratz for giving us a golf Degen story or two. Enjoyed that a lot. Thanks to Roscoe for taking the gear. I mean, this is a superstar producer right here, material. This guy went on his very first vacation in Costa Rica. You know what he did? He took the equipment so we could do a remote show on the plane. That's dedication to the show. Nobody else has that kind of dedication. T, thanks so much for checking in from Thailand.
I took 2 hours out of my pool and sun tanning time too.
It's close. It's a coin flip.
Yeah.
And thanks to you out there, and everybody have a great holiday season. Enjoy your families, and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.